Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unit 4, Day 6. We've reached the end of the transportation unit, talking all about active transport and diffusion. So today's handout is a review of all of those concepts together. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're looking at Unit 4, Day 6, and today's aim is how do molecules move across a cell membrane? So obviously a couple of words that might jump out at you by this point, cell membrane. And hopefully we remember that the cell membrane is semi-permeable. Right, it has selective permeability. Due to its phospholipid bilayer structure. And as far as how molecules move, we're talking about transport, which is usually diffusion, or as we talked about yesterday, active transport. All right. So now that we have sufficiently decoded our aim for today, how do molecules move across the cell membrane? That's what we've been talking about this entire unit, right? Because this process of how molecules get across the cell membrane is critically important to life. So let's start with the do now. Number one, the structure most responsible for maintaining cell homeostasis. So homeostasis is that maintenance of a stable internal environment. And how do you maintain a stable internal environment? By having a secure outer structure that prevents harmful substances from entering the cell and allows waste to exit the cell judiciously, and that's the cell membrane. Number two, a cell membrane is made up of a lipid bilayer. And we said, right, the phospholipid bilayer is critical to that special property of the cell membrane, right? Selective permeability. And our cell membrane has this selective permeability because it is made out of the little phospholipids, the water-loving heads that interact with the aqueous environment inside the cell and outside the cell, and then the water-fearing tails, right? And there's like two lined up there, and that internal environment lines up, those lipids line up, and they make the structure of the cell itself, and they also prevent harmful substances or large molecules, for example, like starch, from entering the cell, right? And starch would be, maybe not necessarily harmful, but it wouldn't be usable by the cell, right? The mitochondria can't use starch as fuel for cellular respiration. It's too big of a molecule. It needs to be broken down. So the cell membrane keeps that out. Diffusion continues until equilibrium is reached. Right, so diffusion is going to continue until there is an equal number of molecules on both sides of the barrier, either if it's a cell membrane or in the case of our dialysis tubing, an artificial cell membrane or a cellophane bag or some other structure that is semi-permeable. If a cell is placed in salt water, water leaves the cell via, and two of these answers are correct. We're talking about, of course, osmosis is the diffusion of water, but the water specifically is moving via osmosis, but that process is also diffusion because in both cases, it's going from high concentration to low without energy. And just the difference is osmosis is the diffusion of water specifically. All right, a cell moves particles from a region of lesser concentration to a region of higher concentration. So from low to high, so we know it's not diffusion, right? Because diffusion is the opposite. It's from high to low. And we can assume, because it's going from low to high, that it needed energy. So our answer is active transport. And also, obviously, osmosis and passive transport all also go from high to low. Let's cross it like that. There we go. Okay. So now, part A, active versus passive transport. Which row in the chart best describes the active transport of molecule X through a cell membrane? So when we're talking about active transport, let's use a different color. We're talking about two different things. Active transport, we know that it needs energy, right? So that's what this ATP is talking about. So we know ATP is used, right? Active transport means it uses energy. So right off the bat, we can eliminate 2 and 4 because they didn't use ATP. So now we're checking out these two answer choices. And as far as the movement of the molecules, active transport is the opposite of diffusion. So we're going from low to high, right? The opposite of diffusion. So the movement of molecules is from low to high. We can eliminate 1, and number 3, row number 3 is our answer. So if we're talking about active transport, the molecules are going to be going from low concentration to higher concentration, and energy will be used. Well, that does not look anything like a lightning bolt. Hold on. ATP specifically is used, and it's going from low to high. All right, so let's take a look at this diagram. So the diagram below represents a cell and several molecules. The number of molecules shown represents the relative concentration of the molecules inside and outside the cell. So let's go ahead and look at this diagram. Ooh, the pixels though. So this is similar to a lot of the diagrams that we've been seeing on Castle Learning as we've been reviewing this unit. So molecule A, represented by little circles. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little circles inside the cell, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little circles outside the cell. Oh shoot. We've got equilibrium for molecule A. Now let's take a look at molecule B. So we've got 4 molecule B inside of the cell and 2 outside of the cell. So molecule B is going to be moving out from high, it's a slightly different color, but close enough for Jazz Baby, to low. And molecule C is a black little triangle, and because it's already black, we can see that it's totally inside of the cell. So is molecule C too big? We're not 100% sure, but molecule C might move out of the cell, right? Or it could move into the cell, but if it wanted to move into the cell, it would need ATP. So now let's take a look at our questions. Molecule B could enter the cell as a direct result of, so molecule B, we know that there's a higher concentration inside the cell than out. So if molecule B is entering the cell, we know that that's active transport, right? Because it's going from low outside the cell to high because it's entering the cell. And we can see there's a higher concentration inside of the cell. Okay, number 8, molecule C could leave the cell as a direct result of. So molecule C, we see that there is a higher concentration inside of the cell, right? We drew that arrow. There's several molecule C inside the cell, but none outside. So molecule C could leave the cell as a direct result of diffusion. Molecule A is currently in a state of, and we said this at the beginning, right? We counted, there's 6 inside and 6 outside, so that means molecule A is groovy. It's feeling happy. It's feeling good. It's in a state of equilibrium. Right there. It's equal on both sides, fair and balanced. Oh, that's a little much. But it is in a state of equilibrium. There we are. All right. Now on to the last few questions. You can see a diagram here. And this is a single-celled organism, maybe like an amoeba. Right? So that means the entire cell or the entire organism is just one cell, right? And when the entire organism is one cell, well, that means that this is extra important, right? Because this cell membrane is what makes the organism alive. You puncture one of our cell membranes, we'll be fine. We have billions of cells. You puncture this cell membrane, end of the organism. And you can see here, we've got some molecules and we're looking at a lower concentration inside the cell and a higher concentration outside the cell. And this arrow looks like it's showing a movement from low to high. So that looks like active transport to me. Now let's go ahead and answer our questions. Ooh, you lost our screen on the last two questions. Let's go ahead and fix that. One sec. All right, so number 10, arrow A represents active transport. State 2 ways that active transport is different from diffusion. So we just said the way we could tell that was active transport is because it goes from low concentration to high. And the thing that it needs to go against the concentration gradient requires ATP. What cell structure is represented by B? Well, it's that one that's all important because this is a single-celled organism that makes the outer barrier of the organism itself. That's the cell membrane. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Unit 4. We're just going to do a final lab for this unit and then the exam. I do believe the timing for this means you're on Thanksgiving break right now, so I hope you're enjoying that, and I'll see you all when we get back. Today's aim was how do molecules move across a cell membrane, and that's via diffusion and active transport through the cell membrane, which is a semi-permeable phospholipid bilayer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a super fantastic day. Don't forget to complete your exit ticket. See y'all on Zoom next time. Bye, guys.